Good day, and welcome to the Budding Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Randy Bridges. In each episode, I cover my experiences, both good and bad, of being a business builder, as well as my journey through the crazy world of entrepreneurship to reach my goal of earning $10 million a year. Today, we're on episode 86. We're going to pick up from the topic we had on Monday for chaos as a compass. But before we get too far into the topic, you may hear a kitten in the background here. We have been taking care of one recently as the weather has turned bad. And so if you hear that in the background, don't be surprised. It's not your imagination. Today, I wanted to take a step back into the process of chaos in our life, especially in business owners. Anytime we're owning a business, we are dealing with chaos all the time. It's just simply the nature of being in an environment where the payoff is really well. Now, something that we get a chance to think about is, and I talked about it on Monday, was the creative clearing, right? Where we are clearing away all of the entanglements around us. And we kind of discussed that a little bit as an idea. I found something that was actually very kind of cool. It's a blog from a gentleman. It's 35hunter.blog. And today, as part 2, we're going to take a look at that a little bit. This is a photographer, and he has to be able to deal with all of the things in the chaos that's around him and be able to, as a photographer, pull everything down to get the focus exactly where it needs to be. And I wanted to introduce this to us because I think that everything we do has the option to be chaos, or if we have a strategy for dealing with that, we're able to take that chaos and mute it, right? Lowering the pressure in our life. And in the case of Alex Charfen, he talks about step 2 of the contribution equation, the entrepreneur's dilemma, asking for protection and support. Sometimes we have people around us that we can rely on for that, but the idea of this is to aggressively, this is the number one step, is aggressively lower the pressure and noise in your life. That's actually where most of our creativity kicks in as business owners, business builders, as entrepreneurs at all levels. So I want to talk about this because the author of the 35hunter.blog, he says that the 3 things that cause the most stress are very simple: mess, noise, and rushing, getting in a hurry. And I wanted to kind of direct a little bit to each of these because the thought of mess and noise and rushing, these are things that to a certain extent we can control. To a certain extent, right? Some of it is simply the nature of what happens. Some of it is the outside world coming in on top of us. And some of it is just our choices of how we respond to things like time, right? The first one was mess. In a photographer's world, if you have too much going on around you, you can't zoom in. It's hard to see the zoom in effect of seeing exactly what you need to photograph. In our businesses, a lot of us, have a tendency, me as included, is that we have an area that's dedicated to what we're doing, but the problem is that things get stacked up. We're so busy. And pretty soon you turn around twice and your office is a mess. And you didn't know how that happened. It just gradually came. So one of the things that Grant Cardone mentions about how to be, successful in the 10X rule is to organize your office, organize your car. go get a bookshelf and get your books up off the floor. You might have gotten a whole box of books like I did from Dana Derricks, and I don't have any place on my bookshelves to put them. So I went and got another bookshelf. I'm going to be putting it and rearranging my office a bit more to take advantage of that. But the simple fact of the matter is that these books that you're feeding your brain with, they have to go somewhere. And it's easy to set them down when you are in the middle of 5 things that hit you all at one time. I wanted to keep in mind that if you get a chance to go with the clean desk principle, which is every day before you leave, you clean everything off of your desk. You put away the things that nobody really should have any access to. You lock away those things, and the rest of the stuff, you put it all in binders, put it into a 4-drawer file or a 2-drawer file, and put it away. Get it out of your, off of your desk, off of your, here comes the kitten. So you probably heard that. There's other ways to organize your day that are going to reduce the stress of mess. One of the most common areas that gets overlooked is scheduling. Now, we get people asking us for meetings and, I just wanted to get 15 minutes of your day tomorrow. And if we aren't careful, our own employees will impinge upon that time as well. They'll come right in and say, hey, I got a problem, and you have to stop them. And it's like, hold on. I'm not ready to deal with your problem. I'm in the middle of 5 other ones right now. So let me put out those fires. You can come back in about 15 minutes. We'll talk about it. What is a good idea is to start using a calendar connector. I use Calendly, but there's a bunch of them out there. And basically, you give people a link to a particular calendar that's locked into your calendar. And, you want to have a 2-way feed here. So as you are adding events to your calendar, other people can't put an event at the same time. It has the advantage of you don't have to be standing there waiting for somebody to send you an event. You've got to accept it. Then it's got to go on your calendar, and maybe it's a different kind of calendar. Instead, have other people directed to your calendar connection. You limit the number of hours that you're available for different types of events. This will help you tremendously to offload a big stress of the mess that is your calendar. We all kind of do this and we say, yeah, it's a great idea. Then we go right back to where we were. And it's important to keep in mind that these calendar, schedulers and helpers and things are just that. They're helpers. If you don't have the right system in place to address that helper program, you're going to find that your schedule gets out of whack, gets completely out of control, and you personally lose control of your calendar, which is the whole problem in the first place with the mess that is calendaring. So make sure while you're organizing your office and you're organizing your car and you're organizing your storage and the things that happen in your business, make sure that the key things that affect you the most are organized as well. Okay. Second thing that causes the most stress for this author, and I can attest to this, is noise. I live in an area where my house is not at the transfer points and cross points of everything else. It's close to the end of a street, which makes it very easy. Almost nobody comes by here, which is great. Every once in a while, you'll hear a truck come by or something like that, and that's usually the maintenance people for the park that I live in. But in an office environment, you want to try to keep that noise to a dull roar. I usually enjoy when I'm getting more stressed, because I live maybe a quarter of a mile from a cornfield, and there's a lake not 20 minutes away of walking, and you can just go and let nature come to you. The noise that is nature is usually much more soothing and much more relaxing, because it's the nature of life and it's the noise of life. And that kind of noise is acceptable. Now, there's another area that you can limit the noise, and you just kind of put it in the background, and that's just playing music. I'm not saying, you have to have heavy metal music and rah, rah, and you don't have to have this boring music sitting in the background. You want something that has a rhythm to it, but it's very basic. You might enjoy classical music, which has a rhythm of its own. Every piece that you're going to probably hear, if you listen to a classical station, are going to be series of different movements, and each movement is relevant to the style of the time that it was written. This provides a certain degree, especially like in the 16th and 17th, 18th centuries. You had minuets, which were basically dances, and they were done in 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And it became very simple to listen to these. They sit in the background and they do their thing. And you can just kind of close it off with the rest of the stuff and let that do its natural effect. Real noise, not structured noise, real noise, which is usually something that's going to come into your life at the least expected time. These types of things will interrupt your creative process. And let's face it, being a business owner and a business builder and an entrepreneur is a creative process, and you have to figure out how to tap into that on a daily basis. Yeah, phone calls, limit those during certain hours. You won't take certain phone calls during certain hours. You have VIPs. Those are limited. Those are very, very limited, because VIPs will demand to talk to the person in charge. Well, anybody else can probably get the work done. They just want to feel important. There's nothing wrong with that, but just make sure that when you have those kinds of unstructured noise that interrupt your day, they really need to be filtered. And people need to understand that. I'm sorry, he's in a meeting, or he's doing, he's working on another project right now. Can I take a message and get back to you have him get back to you, or have her get back to you in 15 minutes? If it's really that much of an emergency, let them on through, but you would be expected to be dealing with that emergency in an emergency fashion. I listen to music that is, when I really want to get the noise level down, I'll listen to one of my favorite bass players, Mark Egan. He has a great set of albums that he's done on his own that are very mellow. They have that rhythmic nature to them, and they really are relaxing. It's really nice. Another thing is the chills music is usually a type of electronica that's very mellow, slow tempos, just letting it sit. If you're a classical person, yeah, absolutely. If that's your bag that makes you feel relaxed, then be sure to institute that. Muzak, like elevator music, it can be relaxing or it can just be annoying. It just depends on what's going on. And the last thing that this particular author put down for the 3 things that cause the most stress, and this is our chaos as a compass. This is leading us down a path how we can control our chaos, and that the compass that is on the other end of it is maintained the direction we need it to be. And the third thing that the author mentioned was rushing, being in a hurry. And this was something that was a habit when I lived in California. It was just people would get to where they're going and they're already planning where they're going next. I mean, they just walked in the door. They may not have even gotten out of their car yet, and they're already planning how long they're going to be here before they have to be to the next place. That kind of rushing, that constant pressure to go places, forces you into a chaos factor. At least it does for me, there's no relaxation in that. There's no enjoyment. I don't feel that even if I have a good idea of what I want to do and accomplish while I'm there and I'm going to do something later on, it seems to me that the plan to move on, there's a lot of pent up stress in there. And it keeps that wheel of how your engine, how it's working, just keeps it cranked up to full blast, and you have so much stress and so much pressure happening that you almost can't necessarily live in the moment of where you are and appreciate what's happening. And that can interfere with your relationships with other people, is when that desire to move forward at the expense of where you are, it will absolutely kill your ability to have good relationships with people. Take time out to go have coffee with somebody, even if you just sit and drink water. Take a social aspect of things and give yourself plenty of time. I usually spend about 2 hours when I'm sitting down with somebody over coffee. Sounds like a lot of time, and in a 8-hour day, yeah, 2 hours seems like a lot, but let's face it, we're business owners, business builders, entrepreneurs. We don't work 8-hour days. If we work 16 hours, we consider ourselves lucky. So 2 hours out of a 16-hour day is not a terrible thing. That's much better than 8 hours and dealing with 2 hours out of it. If you can't do anything else, 15 minutes to just close your door. What was it? Robin Robbins used to do the orange cone exercise, which was, I believe she was involved in exercising and things like that. And you had to have these orange cones that you would do. You'd move from one side to the other to the other. And she started needing to have that kind of time where she could take her time. So what she'd do is she'd close her door, but before she closed it, she would put one of those orange cones outside the door. Everybody knew what that meant. This was downtime. This was relaxation or concentration or something like that. That leads a little bit back into the noise factor, but make sure there's a way for other people to visually see what's happening, and you can slow down and take your time. And I think this is really important as an entrepreneur when you need the creative time, because let's face it, you can't plan without being creative. It's a two-part process. There's planning and the creativity that goes behind it, answering the right questions, getting the right pieces. And it's important that you're not in a hurry when you're trying to do that. This was a great thing with the Chaos as a Compass, is looking at our life and seeing what's happening around us and how can we use that to make sure we're going the right direction. That's really what Chaos as a Compass means to me. The life around us that injects so much goodness in us has so much chaos involved in it. And that's how you know you're living, right? Is you have problems, you have challenges, you have issues. That's how you know you're actually in life, that it's happening not around you, it's happening with you and to you, for you, and then, of course, around you as well. So these three things, mess, noise, and rushing, are all easily controlled. A lot of times it's just a matter of having the right mental focus and making sure that everything sits and focuses for you. And then you can then go wherever you need to go. You calm all this other stuff down around you, and then you can go ahead and relax. And then you're going to see there's a lot more you get done every day. You don't have to be doing things for 16 hours a day. You simply have to have a good solid structure that allows for work time and play time, but also relaxation time. So this stress that is a killer for many of us, we want to go through and keep that chaos to a minimum and keep it to a managed level. And that's really what we're trying to do there. So For the budding entrepreneur, this is Randy Bridges. I'm signing off today. We'll be back on Monday with a new topic. I'm not sure yet what it's going to be, so I want to kind of keep things a little unfocused right now. I want to see what happens this weekend, pull a lot of information in, and see if we can integrate that to continue this process of how do we deal with this chaos that's in our life. All right? We'll talk to you on Monday. Take care and have a great weekend.